Hey guys, man, that was a kick in the nuts today. Oh boy, I'm still kind of like stunned actually. It, that was unexpected to hear about Jeff Beck's passing, apparently from bacterial meningitis, something that hit pretty quickly and unexpectedly, and actually, from what the news is saying, he actually passed away yesterday. But we just heard about it this afternoon. Yeah, I think part of why I was stunned is, I don't know, kind of like Keith Richards or something. It's like Jeff Beck never seemed to age. You know, he never. I mean, he was always just like Jeff Beck. And he didn't slow down. At least in the last 20 years or so. I mean, the guy has been so active. He put out an album last year. I mean, unfortunately, it was this one, right? 18 with Johnny Depp. So this is going to end up being Jeff Beck's final album. Oh well. But yeah, he's been on tour. I believe he had a tour kind of coming up. Playing. I mean, the guy wasn't slowing down anytime soon, and he was 78. But yeah, it's just shocking news to me. This one hits me hard. Yeah, yeah. I mean, Jeff Beck has always been one of my favorite guitar players. If you go watch my top 25 guitar player video that I put out fairly recently, you can see where I put Beck in that list, and go see how I talk about him there. I mean, he was the only one I think out of his generation. Just think of the triumvirate of guitarists coming out of the Yardbirds, right? Jimmy Page, Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck. The only one of those guys still pushing it. I mean, well, hell, Clapton's been sitting back regurgitating blues for decades now, and Page has just been sort of sitting on the legacy of Zeppelin. But Jeff Beck, like some of his most interesting work has been in the 21st century. Has been in the past couple of decades. He continued to push and I don't know if I say get better, but just keep making interesting stuff and trying new things and breaking new ground. And he's just one of a kind. You know, uh, it was his tone. It's hard. When I've tried to explain to in these arguments with friends, it's like who's the great guitar player, and like when I've tried to explain what makes Jeff Beck so great. I mean, it's just such a unique tone, the technique, the thing. I mean, there are people who played faster than him, whatever. But I've always said you could teach a monkey to shred, fast, but nobody could sound like Jeff Beck. And it wasn't that he used fancy equipment and all that. It's just nobody had that sound that he could get out of those guitars. It was unparalleled control and tone and technique. I mean, he could play fast. He could do all that, and he did. Sometimes. But it's just those sounds he got out. Nobody sounded like Jeff Beck. It's a great video from Rick Beato. I mentioned him before. Yeah, yeah. Most of you know who he is, right? Great channel, um, a great musician. Rick Beato is, and he put out a video recently that I suggest you go watch about Jeff Beck, and it was basically like why Jeff Beck is uncopyable. You know, like like you know, you don't hear a lot of people like covering Jeff Beck because they can't. No one can sound like he did. Yeah, it's just one of a kind. And in my view, one of the great guitar players ever. I mean, in that top echelon. Well, like I said, see exactly where I put him if you go watch my top 25 guitar player videos. So, I mean, what do I want to do here? I just want to talk back. Let's just talk a little bit about Jeff Beck. I want to, I'll do an official album rankings of his down the road. We'll do that. I mean, I was always going to at some point, so I will do that. That's not what this video is about. I do want to show some records and talk about them, but just gonna show you some favorites, just some key points, and just kind of talk about Jeff Beck. I saw him. I was able to see him twice in concert, so I tell you some stories from those shows because it was very memorable shows. But yeah, So let's just kind of get into it. A little bit of history too. And one of the interesting things about Jeff Beck, I think, is he did walk away sometimes. There were years between albums sometimes, and he never felt the pressure, I think, from the industry to. He just did it when he wanted to do it, because one of the interesting things about Jeff Beck is he was probably as passionate about restoring like old cars, like hot rod cars, as he was playing the guitar. Like those were his two things, right? And yeah, I remember I've read about him, where he would take years off of recording and touring and even playing the guitar just to like go build cars, go build hot rod cars out on his farm, and then he'd get the itch again, and then record a genius album and go tour and just did it when he want to, right? But yeah, so a little bit of history on Jeff Beck. He of course, well, he started out before the Yardbirds, but the Yardbirds was sort of when he was kind of got noticed, right? And he was the middle guitar player, right? Eric Clapton kind of started out in the Yardbirds. Clapton left. Jeff Beck sort of took over in that middle era, which I think is their most interesting era, right? Um, I mean, it's really fascinating. Listen to the Eric Clapton stuff with the Yardbirds. Listen to the Jeff Beck stuff with the Yardbirds. Listen to the Jimmy Page stuff with the Yardbirds. I think the Jeff Beck stuff is by far the most interesting, innovative, forward-looking, just cool. Even then, Clapton was sort of, wanted to be the blues purist, right? And Beck was like, man, I'll do anything," and just throwing out these psychedelic licks, and just awesome. And it depends on what who you believe. Jeff Beck left or was sacked from the Yardbirds. One of my very I follow the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame quite a bit. I haven't done a video on it yet, but next time they announce a new slate of nominees or inductees, we'll get into it. I have a lot of complaints about it, but we'll get into that. But one of my very favorite, I've watched a lot of the induction speeches and all that. My very favorites was when the Yardbirds were being inducted. Jeff Beck goes up there, and he's of course being inducted with the Yardbirds, and he's like, I should be honored to be here, but I'm not, because these guys kicked me out of the band, so screw you guys. It's like so funny. I mean, the guy was funny too. The dude was funny. Most people know Jeff Beck was one of the models for Nigel Tufnell from Spinal Tap, and Beck loved that. Like Jeff Beck always said, Spinal Tap was one of his favorite movies. It cracked him up. He loved it, so that was cool. But anyway, out of the Yardbirds, he puts together the Jeff Beck Group, right? Which is also notable for who else was in that. That's a hell of a band. Ron Wood on bass, and of course this unknown singer by the name of Rod Stewart on vocals. The Jeff Beck Group puts out 2 records. I have them both here in a kind of twofer set. So Truth, of course. There's the cover there, and then Beckola is the other one, and it just earth shaking hard rock albums, just so awesome. Jeff Beck, Ron Wood, Rod Stewart. Who else was in there? Mick Waller was on there. Nicky Hopkins played piano a lot. So yeah, it's just awesome. That lineup kind of fell apart. You can see you see this pattern with Jeff Beck. He doesn't keep bands together very often. I think it was a little difficult to work with sometimes. He put together, and I have them. Like I said, I'm not showing every Jeff Beck record, but he put together a new Jeff Beck group with not quite as notable people, but interesting records. He made a couple of those records. Then, in the mid-'70s, he goes total jazz fusion. And from the mid-'70s to the beginning of the '80s, he put out this trilogy of albums that is just amazing. Blow by Blow, of course, was that 75? Yeah. 75, Blow by Blow, which I think is one of the great fusion albums. And most jazz fusion, or most fusion, comes from the jazz side, right? Miles Davis and Weather Report. But this was, coming at it from the rock side. But man, this is just amazing. I mean, Scatterbrains on there, because we've ended as lovers. Some of his most lyrical playing, beautiful stuff. Freeway Jam, just rocks in a jazzy way. But man, so good. I mean, the guy had the chops here. And then he follows that up, of course, with Wired, a little harder edge, and yeah, 76. And then it's a little bit of time passes, and then they put out that live album with Jan Winter, God, Jan Hammer. Where is it? Yeah, the Jan Hammer group. Here, I got it right here. This one here. Yeah, Jeff Beck with the Jan Hammer group. Kind of interesting live record. Jan Winter. Um, and then of course There and Back, right? Come out in 1980. Yeah, and then he kind of goes quiet for a while. And he does put out that album Flash, which is pretty bad actually. And then at the end of the 80s, he puts this out, which is Jeff Beck's Guitar Shop. First of all, one of my very favorite album covers ever, combining his love, the guitar and cars, right? And that's just the coolest album cover I think almost ever. Love it. Actually, here it is, kind of the fold out. It's just awesome. Jeff Beck's Guitar Shop. This, I don't know, when I do a Jeff Beck like ranking video, I'll get more into this record. This record is fascinating to me. It continues to be fascinating. This is 1989. I mean, for decades, I couldn't decide whether it was genius or kind of a missed opportunity. Jeff Beck does that. He's not easy. You've got to really listen, really think about what he's doing, watch what he's doing. And this is a fascinating record, just fascinating stuff. Big Block, God, those just shards of just jagged playing on there. Where Were You, which is just amazing. I mean, no one gets those sounds like that. Anyway, it's a fascinating record. And again, in the 90s, he kind of did this and that. And start 1999, from 99 to about 2003, he put out 3 records. It's like trilogy of records, which to me are just astoundingly good. Um, yeah, starting with Who Else? These I have on CD, but I see them ever on vinyl, I grab them. But yeah, Who Else? And then You Had It Coming, and then Jeff. And so these 3, he just totally modernizes. I mean, these are like just almost, I say dance, but he's got these just pounding electronic grooves, and then his amazing playing over that. I mean, I love these records, especially these 2. Who Else and You Had It Coming are just, and this has its moments too, Jeff. But these 2 here are just astoundingly great to me, and show how he was always wanting to push forward, not resting on his laurels, I'm not just putting out what you expect. I mean, it's a totally new sound, man. God, these are good. And really, ever since those, he's been, pretty steadily putting out some interesting stuff. Honestly, the stuff he's put out since those 3 haven't quite, to me, reached those peaks, but they do have some brilliant moments on there. There's one live album, which is Live at Ronnie Scott's, and this was now this says 2015, but I think that's when this reissue came out. That's a date that this, well, editor can throw it up there when this was originally released. But Jeff Beck, live at Ronnie Scott's, performing this week, live at Ronnie Scott's. This is kind of a deluxe edition, so it's a 3-record set on here. I think the normal edition came out as 2 records. But, if you want to hear, sort of what he was doing live, more recently, this this is the gold standard, man. This is so great, so great. So yeah, so I saw Jeff Beck twice. One in '89, and some of you guys may have seen this too, on a double bill with Stevie Ray Vaughan. We'll talk about that. Jeff Beck and Stevie Ray Vaughan, right? Uh, both now deceased, but God, yeah, saw that. Where was that? That's some old Coliseum downtown Houston. I forget the name of it, but and so it was a double bill. So yeah, I think Stevie came out first and did his set, and I saw Stevie Ray Vaughan probably 5 6 times before his demise. But yeah, he did his usual, you know, awesome set, and then Jeff Beck came out and did his set, and so it was '89. So it was on he was promoting Guitar Shop. It was on this tour, and he had Terry Bozzio on drums. It was awesome, and then Tony Hymas on keyboards, kind of doing the bass. It was a trio. So Hymas handling the bass and the keyboards, Bozzio the drums, and of course Jeff Beck on the guitars. Yeah, so Stevie Ray Vaughan obviously played at pretty high volume. But I remember when Beck came out, it sounded like twice as loud as Stevie's set. I mean, it was just like this wall of sound. And I remember at the time I was younger, and Stevie Ray Vaughan is a lot easier to digest. And I'm not knocking Stevie, but it's just just kind of more obvious. But Jeff Beck, I remember at the time after the show, however many days after the show, I was thinking about it. Stevie's set just kind of you know faded into my memory as just another Stevie show. But I kept thinking about the Jeff Beck show, and what it was fascinating. What was he doing? And Jeff Beck does that. The other time I saw Jeff Beck was after he put out. Well, it was in the early 2000s. So I don't remember if it was he was touring for this or this. I think he was touring for this because I think he was playing some of this stuff at the show I saw. So I think he was but he was mostly playing stuff off of these two records, which is great for me because I love these. And he threw in some older stuff too, and just a stunning cover of the Beatles' "A Day in the Life," by the way, which he plays on here too, by the way. But that show was in Austin at a really small venue, and I remember it really well because there's no seating, just like a concrete floor. It's like a warehouse, concrete floor, and you just stood. And I got there real early because like I wanted to get a great spot, and I did. I pushed my way up right front center, and so I was about 8 feet from Jeff Beck the whole show, and just watching him, and it was so cool. He didn't even have like a microphone, to speak. He came out, didn't say a word. We always had this kind of grin on his face, right? And he just kind of waved and just tore it up for 2 hours, whatever. Just stunning, jaw-droppingly great. And then someone gave him a microphone at the very end of the set, and he's like, "Thank you, good night." That's like the only thing he said to the audience all night. But who cares? He was so awesome, so great. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, I just wanted to get something out here for Jeff Beck. This is something I'm gonna have to kind of process for a while because he just I don't know. I never contemplated that Jeff Beck could die. I mean, because like I said, he's never seemed to age, and he was always out there, and he's always putting out new music and always touring. And he always kind of looked the same, and it's like it's just unbelievable. I don't know, but anyway, hope you guys enjoyed that. In the comments, give me your thoughts. And I have friends who do not get Jeff Beck, who do not think he was the amazing guitar player he was, and that's cool too. I mean, we kind of respect, opinions here. So if you're one of those people who like didn't think Beck was all that awesome, that's cool. Say it. If you did, say it. Let's just kind of talk Jeff Beck in the comments. He's always, always stirs up great conversation. But for me, he was always one of the best. His music has meant something to me for decades and decades. Love the guy, love the music. Rest in peace, Jeff Beck. Yeah, and by the way, we had planned on putting out actually a great, I think, great Beach Boys video that I've got ready. We were going to put out for our Thursday video, but Jeff Beck's going to be the Thursday video. So we're gonna bump that to next week. So actually, next week will be a good week. We'll put the Beach Boys video out next week for you guys, and then actually we got to hit 1976. We haven't put a year out in a while, so next week will be 1976 Beach Boys. That'll be good. And then don't forget our poll. We still have our poll going, and that poll is going to close Friday. And if you missed the poll announcement and you're just watching this, well, first of all, please subscribe if you haven't. We'd really appreciate it. It kind of helps us do what we want to do. But also go over to the community tab on our channel. There's a poll there where we're going to dedicate a week to a certain artist, and you guys get to pick. You guys get to choose. There's already been quite a few people voting. It's been kind of fun to watch the results because each one of the four choices has been in the lead at different parts over the last week. But right now, well, actually, I'm not going to tell you who's in the lead right now because it doesn't show you till you vote, and then you see who's in the lead. But your choices are David Bowie, Neil Young, the Rolling Stones, or King Crimson. Those are your four choices, and we're gonna do a week on one of those, probably after next week, because we'll shut down the poll on Friday, and then I need some time to put it together. Whoever wins, so go vote, go vote. Poll is still open till Friday. So anyway, all right. Rest in peace, Jeff Beck. Still can't believe it. We'll see you next time on Amity Tracks.